they get in as a wild card, I would not want to face them because I think they have enough of everything to go deep, with the exception of experience. But when you look around, I'm not sure what team has experience in the American League. I mean, yeah, you could say the Yankees, but everybody else is kind of like kind of feeling their way through it. But it's a formidable team. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And you're right. You better score more than 3 against them, especially when they're at home. They're really good.
It's an uncharacteristic last couple of games for the Cardinals. We saw most of the season, St. Louis found themselves in early holes where they're coming from behind. That hasn't been the case the last 2 games, which is surprising, right? You would think that with that extra cushion, they would be able to continue to add on. The Mariners starting pitching, young, exciting, and capable to stop rallies as soon as they begin.
Yeah, you know what? And the other thing, Stefan, is they do a lot of little things well. I'm not sure if I'd say they're a great defensive team, but the way the Cardinals have dealt with them, I think you look at the last 2 games from the 7th and 8th and 9th innings, the at bats have been feeble. Okay, there's no other way to put it. It just seems like that 3rd time, 4th time around the order, looking at too many strikes, getting themselves out. And a bulk of the strikeouts have taken place at that point during the course of the last 2 games. And it's just a different approach, man. That it's the opposite of what we've seen in the past when they get late in the ball game, when they fight and they do some things that give themselves a chance. That's not happening right now.
Well, that is part of the growing pains of being a young team like the Cardinals, getting late call-ups in September and figuring out what you have for 2026. But I'd feel remiss if I didn't mention the opportunity's been there to really make things interesting down the stretch. You win these last 2 games, you're 2.5 games out all of a sudden of that 3rd and final wild card spot.
There is. And, when you look at the players who've been given a look, I think Swanson has certainly accounted for himself well. Riley O'Brien, when he's healthy, has accounted for himself well. And then after that, I'm just kind of like, I haven't seen anybody break through. I mean, we thought Nathan Church might be the spark. He's having a tough time hitting. Defensively, he's solid. Jordan Walker, I think, has regressed a little bit. Victor Scott has been a guy we're still trying to figure out because the strikeouts have been his enemy, but his defense has been solid. Thomas Ajayci, he's just a guy who's trying to figure it out, okay? I don't know if he has a position or not. I think he lets the game rush him a little too quick. So, in Nolan Gorman, just when you think this is a guy you want to have, here comes a strikeout. Here comes the defensive issues. So I'm not sure if anybody's really broken through. Yeah, I would say Alex Burleson has made a name for himself. Ivan Herrera has been reasonably consistent. The catching situation, I think the jury's still out on Jimmy Crooks and what he can actually do. Pedro Pages is who he is, as is Joel Pozo. So when you look at the regulars, you say to yourself, okay, we're pretty good on what we know who they are. The pitching, as I said, Swanson, O'Brien, Leahy are guys that I think have really made strides. I think everybody else is just, they are what they are or they've regressed.
Cardinals have a winning record since May 1st, and it's crazy to think about considering all the struggles that they've had over really the last few months and just the numbers, right? They're at the bottom of the league in a lot of the offensive categories. They haven't pitched particularly well. How good of a job do you think Ollie Marmol has done down the stretch, especially with a team that I think a lot of fans haven't necessarily given up on, but have turned the page to 2026?
Well, that's a great way to put it, because I don't think fans have given up on it, because I think if not for Ollie and his staff getting what they're getting out of these guys, we'd have given up on them well before now. I mean, we're still talking about 3.5 games out of a wild card spot. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, because I don't know if you have enough pitching to get you there. But I think this is his best job, in my opinion. Now, the record may say something different, but if you see this team every day like you do and like I do, and you just know you're short, you didn't do anything to improve your ball club other than sign Phil Maton, and he's no longer here. And for you to walk into the season without any legitimate improvements, adjustments, call-ups of impact, to say where they're at now, I think is mind-boggling.
It is certainly a perplexing situation, and one that it feels like he's a little bit shorthanded going into every game. But I think that despite that, he's shown his managerial capabilities and his intellect more often than not. And I've seen on social media people arguing, well, he manages the bullpen or he manages the rotation. I have zero gripes with how the bullpen has played by and large this season, especially of late without Helsley, without Maton, and without, of course, Steven Matz. So you lose your best three arms, arguably, in the back end of your bullpen, and you haven't really missed a beat all that much.
Yeah, you think about what you just said. You just talked about three veterans who've been in the game, and in return, you get a Rule 5 guy, you get an independent league guy, you get a guy that's been with three different teams this year, and you have some other guys within your organization that, the only reason why they're here is because we have no one else. So that's a pretty big trade-off. And to look at the records and the performance of those players who have moved on, maybe even says even more about the job that he did, because they were effective enough to be traded to someone else. And since they've landed in those other spots, the grass was not as green as maybe some would have thought it was going to be.
And that extends beyond Ollie Marmol, his staff, Dusty Blake, of course, Stubby Clapp, Pop Warner. And you can't not mention Brant Brown and the work that he has put in with these players individually and collectively. So really, they have done a nice job weathering the storm. And I'd like to touch on that a little bit further on in the show. But a quick reminder that this show is powered by Graybar, your distributor for electrical datacom needs. Mike Claiborne is presented by the Painting and Decorating Foundation of St. Louis. Now, tonight, game number 3 is an important one for the Cardinals. You don't want to get swept by the Mariners and then head to Milwaukee against a team that just refuses to lose. The Brewers, I don't know if it's devil magic, I don't know what it is, but they have just found ways to win and been the thorn in the side of every single team that they've played, at least in the last 3 months. That game's going to begin at 8:40 Central Time. I mean, the Brewers, what's up with them? I don't understand how they're not getting more circulation and traction to be maybe the World Series front runner right now.
I think maybe one of the reasons is because you really don't know who these players are. I mean, you look at the Dodgers and you see Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts. You look at the Yankees and you see Judge and Stanton and people of that nature. You look at Philadelphia and what they're doing with some household names. But when you get to the Brewers, you're kind of like, okay, who do they have? They have, Willie Adames. No, he's not there anymore. Well, they've got the club. No, he's not there anymore. And then you say, your designated hitter, who was a guy that really had some good seasons before his back started giving problems. He's having a good season. But, none of those other guys are really household names that we're quite familiar with. And I'm anxious to see them because we haven't seen them in a while. And I don't know what they're drinking, but it certainly is working for them. And you have to tip your cap to them because they've been maybe as consistent of a team as we've seen in all of baseball since the beginning of the season. Remember, I thought they would compete with Pittsburgh to make sure they stayed out of last place. So I was dead wrong about that. But you know what? I guess what I would say from a distance, when you look at the raw numbers, they must be very athletic because they do a lot of things right. They run the bases well. They slug when they need to. They're solid defensively. And yes, they can pitch. Now, I don't know if there's a Cy Young candidate on that team or not. I don't know if they're going to have the bullpen of the year, but I know this, man, they win more of those games than maybe some people thought they would.